A linear model will fit a line that best separates the high-risk patients, here represented with the red background, from the low-risk patients, here the blue background. However, we can see that this would misclassify a lot of patients at high risk, which should really be in the red region. Let's now look at a classifier which will make a better classification, the decision tree. Decision trees divide the input space into regions of high risk and low risk using vertical and horizontal boundaries. The decision tree classifier can be viewed as partitioning the input feature space into regions. We can also represent this classifier as a tree with an if-then structure. A decision tree is asking a series of questions and classifies a patient based on the answer to each of those questions. Let's see this with an example. How would we classify these three patients over here? Let's walk through this if-then structure. For patient 1, we see that their age is 80 and BP is 162. So we would look at the age and see that it's greater than 60, and we would classify this patient as high risk. For patient 2, we would see that their age is smaller than 60, and we would look at their blood pressure to determine that they are low risk. Finally, for patient 3, we would see that their age is smaller than 60 and blood pressure greater than 160, so we would classify them as high risk. Decision trees can model nonlinear associations. Notice how they're able to capture here that the risk is low when both age and BP are low. That's a nonlinear association. On the other hand, linear models are not able to capture this because they're only able to draw one straight line through the feature space. An exception to this is when linear models use interaction terms, as we've seen last week, using which it can model some nonlinear associations, but let's not worry about that for now. Here are two decision tree classifiers. Notice that decision tree boundaries are always vertical or horizontal, at least in our choice of algorithm to construct decision trees. So by looking at the boundaries of a classifier in the input space, we can tell whether the decision boundaries could have been constructed using a decision tree. Using that, let's determine which of the following could be class boundaries of a decision tree. So remember that decision trees can only make vertical or horizontal boundaries, so neither of the first two could have been generated by a decision tree, but this one over here could have been generated by a decision tree because all of the splits are vertical or horizontal.